everybody. Shona, we're making no judgments if you're eating your lunch. That's perfectly acceptable. And that's exactly, you know, I think when we were pulling together our webinar programme, it was really important that we thought about how people fit into what's going on in the world. So for those of you that haven't heard me say this before, our webinar programme really starts on a Tuesday afternoon. We do a coffee and a virtual cake with members, and that's a chance for them to just network and kind of tell us what's going on with them, but also hear a bit about the work that we've been doing, and it helps us hear about very, very live issues. So this week, you know, for example, we were hearing about people's access to the Bounce Back Loan Scheme, the Self-Employed Hardship Fund, and some other areas like that. So it's really useful for us to be able to hear really quickly how that support's getting to government, from government to businesses. Also on a Tuesday and in the evening, we do a guide too. So we've done a guide to communications, and last night was a guide to Teams. So I know we're all using Teams for webinars, and everybody has mastered at least how to access a team session because you're all here today. But you know, that's really just scratching the surface of this product, and Microsoft made it free. Now I think it was 7 months when we all went into lockdown, so it's a really, really useful tool. We're using it a lot. The Chamber's been using it for a long time anyway, and we use it to store a load of documents, to work collaboratively across the team, to do internal communications and take all of that stuff out of email into chat. There's calendars and planners and all sorts of different things. So I would encourage you to go and have a look at last night's session on our YouTube channel if you didn't get the chance to join in, because Teams is a really, really brilliant bit of software, and there's lots that you can use it for. And then on a Wednesday, we began the programme looking at mental health and wellbeing, and we're slightly full circle on that, I think, with today's session. But the Wednesday webinars are definitely about supporting people rather than your business, and business support is the topic of our Thursday session. And Sarah will tell you a little bit later on about what we've got coming up tomorrow, because tomorrow's session's got some brilliant speakers, and it'll be a really good, interesting one to kind of close our week off. So webinars is what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of talking to government and updating our COVID hub, as you would be expecting. As you may know, and I've already talked a little bit about, a few schemes went live or opened this week. So the Bounce Back Loan Scheme, which is aimed at really small organisations accessing very quickly up to £50,000. That is getting to people already. So money was in bank accounts yesterday. The scheme only opened on Monday. So that's just a fantastically quick way for that government support to be getting to some people, because some of the other loan schemes are taking a bit longer because they're for more money and they're just more complicated products to access. Also, the Self-Employed Hardship Fund that's available via the local authorities. So that's a £2,000 one-off grant payment for self-employed people that are just falling all through all of the cracks that are there at the moment. So I know that the 4 local authorities in our region are really on top of that. I got a message last night, particularly it was Angus Council in particular, that I remember saying that they had none still outstanding to be gone through. So again, that support is really priceless and is really needed. So we've been working hard with the local authorities to get that support out. And just, you know, really kind of making sure that if there are other things that businesses aren't aware of that they're entitled to, that we're helping you get that support. So I think that's kind of all I wanted to touch on at the moment. I'm going to get out of the way now and let Robert come in and kind of talk to us. So today is all about challenging your belief system, and Robert's going to tell us about his story, and then also tell us more about SHAPE and the therapy and what that's all about. So Robert, if you want to unmute yourself, I'll let you know I can hear you, and then I will mute and get out of the way. All right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Robert Marshall. I'm a counsellor and psychotherapist. And today I just want to speak about a wee bit about how I came to be, a rebirth or whatever. So going back about 8 years ago now, I was sitting in the same room, and I was sitting here with litre of vodka and smoking my wee rollies and thinking, I just don't want to live. I don't want to even wake up tomorrow. And that was really the true sense of where I was about 8 years ago. And then I basically just looked out the window, and I live right across the road from Angus College. And I thought, maybe I could do something. And really, I don't know if that was a light bulb moment or whatever, but that was the start of what I call my recovery from alcohol abuse. And I had to really look at myself and think, how the hell did I get here? What is addiction? Why did I get it? And it's been a journey, and it's been actually a beautiful journey, a lovely journey in terms of recovery. So I just went back to college, done a couple of hires in social care, and I actually wanted to find out why I was like that. Because I just started off drinking sort of socially at weekends, and then it crept in maybe during the day, and then maybe some nights at the weekend, and then I was going, but the pressures of my business. I was a salesperson in Aberdeen, and I was like, but that's so pressurising, and I just kept on drinking more and more and more. And I thought it was just overwhelming, but I wasn't actually listening to myself. And I think the realisation and understanding the psychology behind addictions and things like that. So then I went and thought, do you know what, I'm really quite interested in this, and I didn't really know what to do. And I started a wee part-time business doing water rates and things like that, and started building up a wee bit of funding through that. But that allowed me to go back into college and sign up for a counselling COSCA certificate course way back. I think that must have been about 5 years ago now. And I did that, and I started learning about how to listen. But there's a difference, and I thought I was quite good at listening, but it wasn't. I was actually a very, very good speaker. And there's a completely massive difference between listening and speaking, which I'll go on and tell you a wee bit more about when we go on and talk about shape therapy. So I eventually did a diploma in personal-centred counselling and psychotherapy, and I felt that was just a fantastic, awesome journey. Because I was cognitively minded. I was chasing about how to, survive. I was always trying to burst a target or, drive myself all the time. And I wasn't actually thinking about living. Who was I as a person? I didn't even know who I was. And I just, some funny wee stories. I can remember coming back from work, and I used to say, I've had a great day, I deserve a drink. And then some other time I come back and say, do you know what, I've had a really terrible day today, but I'll have a drink. And then the next day I would maybe come back and I would say something like, do you know what, I've had some ups and downs in my life today and my day-to-day work. I think I'll have a drink. And it was just, that was the way my life was about. It was just like, I just had to drink, and that was my escapism, my get-out clause, because I didn't really know who I was. So, and I guess that brings us, why, I started up Shape. And I guess, first of all, I didn't know who I was. And that journey, that recovery journey, okay, I'm now what we classed as personal development. So I'm no longer in recovery from alcohol abuse. I kind of understood it, and I don't fear it, etc. Okay, it's still got to be vigilant. I don't want to go back there again, and I don't think I will do. So Shape was born through the process of my experience of that rebirth. And I'm only going to probably talk for about 25 to 30 minutes in total. And I would like, maybe if we can get some questions, that would be really useful to us today. I like to be as interactive as I possibly can. So so that was the lived experience, and how did Shape actually was formed. I really, really loved the journey of the personal-centred journey. In other words, I first learned how to get off alcohol very cognitively using tools and strategies. But the actual biggest tool was actually the listening skill. What is listening skills? And it's listening to your fellow human being, and it's about listening to their body language, listening to their words and their tones and everything about them, and actually finding out what they're actually saying so that you can respond in a way that's useful, so that they understand and they know that you're caring for them. And that's how I felt Shape was born. I mean, it's based on the person-centered tools of person-centered tools of the humanistic approach, the person-centered approach, and I've just basically made them my own in such a way, and used a wee bit of extra stuff added on. So there is 7 key principles, and I'm going to tell you a wee bit about them, and I'm going to go into them one at a time. And then I'm going to try and give you some tools and strategies to have a wee think about. So the first one is compassion, self-compassion. So it's being compassionate to yourself first and foremost, and then being able to offer that compassion to others. The next one is acceptance. So it's about accepting yourself as a fallible human being, and maybe offering acceptance to others. Judgment, but it's mainly non-judgmental. So it's about how do we use judgment ourselves and then offer it to others. Being genuine and real to ourselves and then offering it to others. Empathizing with ourselves and empathizing with other people. Being open and honest to the self and others. And in the last one, I'm going to give you some tools and strategies about empowering. So the first one, and I'm going to tell you these stories as well, and you'll probably laugh at some of them. And I've told, if any of you's followed me before, you probably heard me saying a few of these before. So first one is self-compassion, and a good way to start is when I'm counselling my clients. I hear a lot of negativity. So they come in and they would say, do you know what, I'm really stressed. I'm useless at that, and I can't do this, and I've had enough. I just can't stand it. I'm just rubbish. And then I would say, so what are you like for other people? They say, well, I'm really nice to my friends and my family. I offer them a lot of support. And then it's quite funny. And I say to myself, well, you know, why, you know, how you offer all that beauty and all that care and attention to all these other people. Why do you not offer them the doom and gloom that you say to yourself? Why do you not tell them that you're rubbish, that they're rubbish and they can't, and their failures? Not, well, I would never do that. So why do you tell yourself that you're maybe not good, you're rubbish, and blah, 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 blah? So can you see what I mean by this? Is sometimes we're really quite damning on ourselves, and we don't actually show ourselves any value or any compassion. So that happens a lot in counselling, believe it or not. So be mindful when you're down in yourself, when you're really strict and you're really hard on yourself, you know, because if you're doing that all the time, you're going to act out in a negative behavioural way, or you're going to get stressed and you're going to get anxious because you're not truly freely yourself and valuing yourself. So here's the wee tool. So this is the first tool. So you could write down 5, say especially if you're feeling a wee bit down, or you've got staff members who are maybe struggling a wee bit, is maybe just reflect that back to them, that same story of how I put this across, but maybe get them to, or you can do this yourself, is write 5 things down that you think that you are awesome at, right? Now, it's okay to be nice to yourself. And then maybe ask another person, somebody that's close to you, what 5 things that they think that you're good at, and see if they match up. But the most important thing about compassion is we've got to show ourselves some self-compassion, some self-care, because here's the saying: do you not think you're worth it? And what I mean by that is that you've got to be able to value yourself. And I often say this. Do you not think you're worth it? And they go, well, and they look at me strangely. Yes, of course. Well, treat yourself kindly. At the end of the day, and this is another thing, if you can't show yourself compassion, how can you possibly offer compassion and kindness to other people? And I believe that with all the principles, and it can maybe go back to that love thing. If you can't love yourself, how can you really love others? So be mindful of that. And that wee tool, maybe just write down these 5 things. So that's compassion, and it's really important. And it's not one of the core conditions of Carol Rogers stuff. It's just, it comes from maybe the Eastern side of things. So that's compassion. So here's the next one, and that's self-acceptance. And I quite like acceptance, and I'll maybe give you the wee tool first, and then work on the tool and give you examples of the tool. If you can maybe draw two circles, one big circle and one small circle, and we use this in shape therapy quite a bit in one of the modules. And the inner circle is all about you. These are the things that you can control, right? So these are your feelings, your thoughts, your behaviours, everything that you can control is the inner circle. But here's the thing, we spend a lot of energy and time, right, in the outer circle, things that we can't control, things that we can't accept. So that could be coronavirus, that could be, what other people do, what other people think, So these are what we call the external things. So we waste a lot of time and energy on the outer circle that we can't really control, that we can't really accept. The one thing that we can accept is the inner circle. It's our life, our world. So be mindful and use that little wee tool. In other words, I mean, a great example of acceptance is, here's the thing. My story, for instance, now, in the time that I was really bad with the alcohol, etc., I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of stupid things, and it's not who I am now. So I accept, and I probably don't even need to forgive myself for some of the stupid and silly things that I did in my life under the influence of alcohol, and even that deep depression. But I've got to draw a line and accept that that's who I was then. And as of today, I'll offer something beautiful, or certainly share and be as open and as honest as I possibly can. And I accept myself for a fallible human being. And I don't try and get too worried about all this external stuff clogging up my day and my mind. So it allows me to be freer because I'm concentrating on the things that I can do and accept. So that's just a wee bit of mindfulness of acceptance, and try that little two circles. And if there's a lot of stuff that you worry about and can't accept in the outer circle, let it go, because it's just causing you more anxiety and more stress. And if you've got staff as well, share that little wee two circle thing. It's very simple, but it gets you to think about, yourself a bit more. Okay, here's the next one, and that's a little bit on non-judgmental. And I guess we always form an opinion, and sometimes we may well go to judge quite quickly. And here's the thing as well. Sometimes, even if we're right, why judge it? So I know we're using Facebook a lot because we're locked in here, and a perfect example, and I'll give you a little wee tool, and it's just a simple tool of a big red stop sign. And I guess what that really means is, see if you're right. Just think about responding, especially to Facebook, because do you really have to? Okay, you might have an opinion and you might say, do you know what, I know I'm right. But when Facebook's at its worst, okay, now Facebook is very good for lots of stuff, especially now for information, etc. And I can't, and I do a lot of work in Tenerife, and I've got 7 diploma students in Tenerife who are working through shape therapy, and they only use Facebook to communicate with everything. So it's very, very useful. But here's the thing: have you ever noticed in Facebook when you get drawn into a side, and it's just like it turns very nasty very quickly? So the non-judgment is, even if you're right, do you really need to go one side or the other? You can form your opinion, but you can be softer with it. So what I mean by that is that just think about the red stop sign and think about a responding. You could say something like, I believe this to be my opinion. However, you don't need to be strong one way or the other, because it stops you from actually getting yourself drawn into an argument. So that the big red stop sign is pretty good. And here's the other thing as well, is see, maybe when we are speaking on Facebook, sometimes it's maybe important to write from the I perspective. What I mean by that is, if you're writing something that you feel, write it from you, write it from me, the person. Because if you keep writing, and I notice this a lot on Facebook, if you write, this is what society says, you know, this is what it should be, that is easily construed to be criticised quite quickly. But if you say it from your own feeling, you know, you don't need to be, you know, harsh in the way you feel. And I always think that that's very useful. So non-judging, it always gets us into trouble if we judge things too quickly. So just be mindful of that little big, that big red stop sign. So we're going to go on to genuine and real. And I know Carol Rogers uses genuine and real and open and honest, and that's congruence, but I've split them up. So genuine, real and open and honest are two separate principles. Now, genuine and real is quite important to me, because when I went back to my days of rushing about, driving back home, drinking vodka because I wasn't genuine and real, I didn't know who the hell I was as a person. So what we've got to do here is actually, I had no identity. I didn't know who I was, and I was just jumping on the social cultural bandwagons. What I mean by that is, you know, I had the 2.4. I wanted to get the 2.4 children, the car, the house, you know, the golf club, the, you know, all the social cultural norms of our society. But you see, when I look back, I look at myself and think to myself, did I really want any of that? Did I really appreciate any of that? And you got to be careful that we're just being driven, and we've got to be mindful of who we are as fallible human beings. So maybe the reflection that I want you to, maybe this is the tool in this one, is I would always go on about listen to yourself a wee bit more. Listen to, who am I as a person? What do I really want out of life? Am I genuine and real to the world about me, or am I just jumping on the social cultural bandwagon of this is what we're supposed to do? So a wee bit mindful of that. And here's a nice statement that I'm going to leave you with on genuine and real. I might not be perfect, but I am enough, right? And that's a beautiful saying. And we've really got to say it a lot more to ourselves, because we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be these social cultural norm beings, you know, the 2.4 children, the car, the whatever. We could just be whoever we want to be, and we'll aspire to be better people if we can think about ourselves in that light. Okay, so the tool is listen to yourself a wee bit more. Who am I as a person? Am I being genuine, real to myself? Okay, so that's the little wee tool there. And then this next one is empathy, and this is the listening tool as such. So in order to empathise with ourselves, we've got to listen to ourselves. So I'm going to go back to that listening. So we don't need to be an expert again. So what is empathy? And the true empathy, and I'll give you a wee example of it in counselling, is when I'm counselling a client, it's about really getting into the client's frame of reference, and it's about listening to the client. So it doesn't matter, in counselling, you've got to be, obviously contract confidentiality, but it's an opportunity to get into the client's world. And it's a beautiful world when you get in there and you can really understand them. Now, the most important, the difference between, and I'll let you any wee secret there, the difference between empathy and sympathy, and an easy way to do it is think about empathy is like sympathy with a solution. So you're getting into the client's frame of reference and you're empathising. You're really going in and saying, do you know what, that sounds really hard to you where you are there. And then you would use something that, so what are we going to do about it? How can we help you to move away from that? So you can see that it's get into the client's frame of reference in the world that they are in, but it's also, what can we do about it? So sympathy would be, oh, it's terrible, isn't it? Oh, that's it. So you're just agreeing with everything there, and you both are in the puddle, and you're just sinking, and you're not swimming. You know, so that's sympathy. But empathy is, so what can we do about it? And it's likewise with yourself, and it's about how do you really truly empathise with yourself first and foremost. So I go back to my my story, and my story is, you know what? When I look back, and there's still things that I remember. You know, I used to drive about, you know, drinking. When the drink's in your system that much, you drink driving all the time. So I was risking myself. I was risking a lot of people's lives, and it hurts me when I hear it, when I feel it again. So I've got to empathise with myself, and it's like that acceptance. It's about, do you know what? That's who I used to be. That's not who I am as of today. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learnt from the mistakes. And this is part of my learning, and is to show and is to reflect back on telling you this story to help you to understand that it's okay to let it go. So my empathy is, yeah, what am I doing about it? I'm not just wallowing in it. I'm actually saying I'm learning from it, and I'm sharing the opportunity to show you guys how to use empathy. So for me, my empathy is, that's who I used to be, but that's not who I am now. And I can move on with my life, and it makes me freer. It makes me open to do a lot more things in my life. So that's empathy. And the tool really, again, these two tools, genuine and real, I'm going to just use that about, can you let something go in the past? Can you empathise with yourself? Can you accept it? So it's about more of the self-reflection. So we'll go on to open and honest, which is, it's like congruence. It's part of congruence, open, honest, genuine, real, but this one sits on itself. And so it's about, so again, going back to listening to yourself, are we really truly open and honest? You know, here's the thing, for me, all I was doing was dodging bullets. And I can remember in my real bad days when I just seemed to go around in this circle. And the circle was, I used to think, all right, I get myself back together again, and then, oh, I felt better, and then I would drink again, and then done something stupid, and then I wasn't really truly being open and honest to myself. And your gut knows the truth. It actually knows, you know, that you're kidding yourself on, and you're telling lies. So I was come back from my work, sometimes I would be saying, you know, I've had a great day, so I'm going to have a drink, you know, or I've had a bad day, I'm going to have a drink. So what was the common denominator? Drink. So if I was really open and honest, there was nothing to do with my day. It was nothing to do with my stressful work. And I guess I used to blame the stress and anxiety of working. And it actually, when you think about it, if you're really open and honest with yourself, it was nothing to do with the work. It was just to do with the drink. And then when you looked underneath the drink, it was got nothing to do with the drink. It was to do with who the hell was I as a person. So a lot of people, when they come to counselling, they look to find a sense of self. They actually come and they go, fix me, you know, and we don't, and counsellors per se, and if any counsellors are listening to this or eventually listening to this, they know that they don't fix people, they fix themselves. So you only facilitate them to look at themselves and to see that, you know, to look at the open and honesty within themselves. So you just facilitate that, and they'll change themselves, and they'll, you know, make the right decisions themselves. So the stop dodging bullets thing, because that's all I did in my life. I was dodging bullets, and all it was, I spent so much energy, you know, trying to hide my addiction, and I just did not listen to myself at all. So the wee tool is, you know, again, more listening to yourself and actually listening to a gut, because the truth is inside. We'll just deflect it sometimes. So that's a wee bit about open and honesty. And here's the last one, and I'm going to spend a wee bit more time on this one. So it's about empowering. So what can we empower ourselves to do? So if you combine all these tools, you can combine them all and empower yourself to be more reflective. In other words, think about ourselves first, inside out. So that's the first tip, is to empower ourselves to use all these six ways of being. The seventh, empowerment, is a kind of way of doing. So we're getting the ways of being and using them all together collectively, because you can't really just use open and honest on its own, because if you were brutally honest all the time, you're not really being genuine and real. So you know what I mean? You've got to use maybe empathy, being genuine and real and open and honest at the same time. So when you tell somebody that, here's a great example, when you tell somebody that you actually love, that maybe, I don't know, they're drinking too much, you'd say, do you know what? It sounds, you know, you would say something like, I'm kind of worried about your health because you're drinking a bit much at the moment, and I'm worried in case it's doing something to you. So you can find a beautiful way to tell. I mean, I'm not saying that I can. I'm not saying I'm an expert at all this stuff. But you can, if you really work hard at it, you can find a way, using empathy, using open and honest, genuine and real, to tell somebody that you love that to stop doing something. And it's not easy when there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in it, but there is. So you've got to really try and use all these 7 key principles together to actively, you know, use them properly. Okay, there's another little tip that I'm going to tell you about as well, is we can start goal setting. See, once we're in lockdown, we've got plenty of time in our hands, and it's about, and here's the thing, we do focus a lot on things that we cannot do. Why can we not think about the things that we can do in lockdown? And that's what I've been trying really quite hard to do. So it's a beautiful day today, so I'm going to try and get my exercise in today and use a lot of time today to spend outside, because I've worked all morning as well. So I've kind of, you know, used my goal setting for that. So maybe just simply draw a little diagram and have one big, massive, big goal, but maybe have 4 medium-sized goals underneath it, because you can't get to that big goal without medium-sized ones. And then underneath the 4 medium-sized ones, have 4 little wee tiny ones. So if we want to become an astronaut, how would we do that? We might need 4. So you need the education, you need the physical, you know, your physique need to be right. You need lots of other medium-sized goals. And then underneath that, you would have a goal set to get to that physical well-being. So it's a structure, it's like a wee tree. So simply set up some goals, some simple goals, things that you can do in the lockdown. Now, you might be restricted to certain things, but don't focus on them. Focus on the things that you can do, okay? And that reduces the stress and anxiety within as well. So that's a wee bit more about the empowerment. So that's all the shape therapy tools. I'm going to tell you a wee bit about shape therapy in terms of what it is, what do we do? So as you know, I'm a counsellor psychotherapist. We have run a diploma in Tenerife, and we're going to be starting one here as well. What does that mean is we've got 6 modules that you do in your training. And the first 2 modules, for instance, are on the self. So in other words, it's about using these 7 key principles on yourself. We need to open you up as a therapeutic person, therapy in yourself, to find out if you can offer that to other people. So the first 2 modules are on the self. Then there's 2 specific modules, and you can pick a few of them. And then there's 2 modules at the end, which are counselling skills per se. And then you get a diploma if you go out and you do between 10 and 20 reflective practices on, people that, you could reach out to people that you could do it with. And it's like giving them a 45-minute reflective practice session, and that's your practice work. And then you write an essay about it. All along, you get 4 hours supervision. And that diploma is going to be held in August. So if you know any friends or family that are looking for maybe additional career path, etc., then they can go on and do a diploma in shape therapy. I only have 8 spaces, and it's going to be in a hotel in Dundee. So that's coming in August, so look out for that. What that gives you is that you'll become what we call a shape therapist diploma reflective practitioner. You're not a counsellor, but you would be a reflective practitioner. Instead of charging, say, £40 for 45 minutes as a counsellor, roughly you would charge £25 for 45 minutes. And you've got to, you've obviously got to adhere to the shape therapy ethical conduct, and you need supervision all the time throughout this. So it's just something that a wee bit different from counselling, but it's just something maybe that you would only charge £25 for. The other thing that we have that's important as well is we give shape therapy modules to companies and things like that. We're not really developed that much at the moment, but we will. If you found that this is quite interesting, then we'll bring the modules to companies for something like I think it's £60 a month. We bring one a year, and we give you 10 sessions for your staff, etc. And it's £60 a month, 3-year contract. So there's things like that are available. But the main thing, I don't want to sell too much today because we're all on lockdown. It's about these 7 key principles, how we can use them in our reflective practice. So I would like, if possible, I don't know how long I've spoke for. I think it's probably a good 30 minutes. So do you have any questions that you can ask me, either as a counsellor or a wee bit more about shape therapy?
We do. Thanks so much, Robert. We've got a question from Caroline. Caroline, if you're able to unmute yourself, we'll get you to come in and you can ask your question to Robert. Oh, I know you've unmuted yourself, Caroline, but it's a bit robotic. I don't know if you're able to try again.
I don't really know. Is that any better?
A wee bit better.
I'll ask a question and hopefully it works. My microphone's not, I have to admit.
Okay.
I suppose the 2 parts to my question. The first part was you talked about writing 5 things about you and asking friends to do this and seeing how they match. And I get the theory behind that. What if what you write and what your friends write is completely different? What do you do about that? Does it matter?
I'm not quite sure that Robert got that, Caroline. It's in the chat bar, so I'll read it out.
Right.
So Caroline's asking, so you talked about writing the 5 good things about you and asking a friend to do the same and see how they match. What does it say if those lists are wildly different?
Well, do you know something? That's a really great point. And I guess, what do you think it would do? Are you being genuine and real? And you offering, are you the self being genuine and real? So you think about yourself. So the 5 things that you think you're good at should be the things that you actually think. But actually what you're doing probably is portraying 5 other things. So they're not quite matching. So maybe you've got to be more open and honest with yourself and try and speak to the other, even discuss it with each other. Say, well, I felt I was this, but you're telling me you're this. And that could be a good topic of conversation, because maybe you're jumping on the social cultural bandwagon that I was going on about before. You're actually just saying what you think, or being the way that you think you should be, but actually that's not who you are inside. So that would be quite an interesting topic to actually have that discussion. You might find out a lot more about what people perceive you as, and then you're going, but that doesn't match the way I feel. And I'm just, so it could be good conversations, and say it in a nice, empathetic way, especially if it's a friend and things like that. That's a good conversation to have with somebody, because if it's not matching, you're obviously giving out something who you're not. Do you know what I mean? And that's, see, when I was rushing about trying to be this, whoever I was trying to be, that's all I was doing. I was just trying to conform, but fight to get up the ladder of success and whatever that was. I didn't actually really know who I was. So if you don't really know who you are, how can you possibly, offer that to somebody else or tell somebody else? So I was probably, my 5 things coming back would be at that time completely different from what I think they are now. So it might push you in I hope that answers your question. And there is no answer, is there really, either? It's about go and explore it, because it might not match. And if it doesn't match, then get it to match, or, you know, discuss it. It's a good topic to discuss.
Mm-hmm. The other part, Caroline's question, so should you ask yourself and your friend a similar question about areas for improvement, or is that just asking for trouble?
So say that again then. I don't...
So should you ask yourself and your friend a similar question about areas for improvement, or is that just asking for trouble? Well,
for me, I'm not sure what the trouble would be. So is it that you're looking for a negative coming back? I'm not sure about that. I would need to, in fact, for me, there sounds like there's a lot of hesitancy in that you would ask that question. So I would be looking at the question as well and thinking, why would you ask that question? Are you looking for a negative to come back? Asking for trouble? What is that, asking for trouble? You know, so it depends who you're going to ask the 5 things for. And I guess, you know, you might as well, if it's something that somebody's hiding, get it out in the open. You know, we're all fallible. We'll make mistakes. You know, we're not perfect human beings. So, you know, if there is something that's hidden, let's find out. Well, I would like to find out. I mean, asking for trouble, that sounds harsh. That sounds as if certain things are suppressed to me. Mm. I don't know if that's answering your question, Caroline. I think I would need to know more about what you're really meaning by asking for trouble, and I would be exploring that part, and because that to me it sounds to me as if you're almost waiting for trouble to come, and it's a difficult one there. So I don't really know if that answers anything. I guess I don't. I think perhaps maybe what Caroline's trying to say is, you know, should you ask a friend what areas you have that need improved and vice versa, or does that open up a can of worms? You know, is that just going to turn into maybe things that you don't want to hear? So 5 good things that you're asking them to give you. So I'm more inclined to be in the positive side rather than the negative side. I'm not asking them to give me 5 things that I could be working on or that I'm not good at. So, you know, I'm probably too positive. But what I mean by that in terms of, you're asking 5 good things because you can always work with positives to beat negativity in a sense. So I'm not asking, you wouldn't ask somebody, give me 5 things that I'm not good at. I'm asking for 5 things that I'm good at, because this is showing compassion to yourself. This is showing value to yourself. So, you know, okay, we might have things that we're maybe not quite good at, right? Or we could be slightly better at, but that's as far as it goes. We can be better at it. Not we're rubbish at it, damn ourselves. Because again, that's negative self-talk. We can talk, we can say it. Yeah, okay, I wasn't particularly that good at that part, but maybe I could do better next time, or maybe I could learn from the mistake. So there's always a positive from a negative, because we've got to stay positive. Now, I'm not saying that we're walking about with big smiles on our face all the time. We need some time to reflect and sadness and things like that. That's okay. It's a part of our human emotion. So we might just going to have to say, you know, I might going to just have to be sad today or whatever. But this is about being compassionate to yourself and feeling a wee bit of, you know what, I am worth it, and I can tackle it more adversity or challenges, because I feel okay. I'm fallible. I'm not perfect, but I could probably do better next time. So it's mainly focused on the positives. If you're asking somebody 5 questions, the positives. Okay, it's a good point. You spoke about obviously the 7 key principles and using them together. Is there a key number that you should use? Should you take 3 or 4 of them? Should you use all 7? Does it depend on what environment you're in, what situation you're in? So that's a great question. So in the diploma, we look at the 7 key principles on an individual basis. So just as I was explaining them in an individual basis, and try to give you wee tools individually, but you want to try and use them. So this is what I aspire to be. I aspire to use these as my well-being sort of tick box, but I try and use them all if I can. So you don't need to use them all. But I was going on about how do you tell somebody you can't just be open and honest, because that's brutal sometimes, right? So you need to maybe use a lot of empathy and compassion, you know, tell them they're very value to them. And I was just kind of wondering, could we look at maybe cutting down the drink? So I accept. So you maybe say, I accept that you don't want to give up drink. However, could we work on something that can maybe be less damaging to your health? But you can say it in a compassionate way, because I love you and I value you. So, you know, you're maybe using compassion there, empathy, getting into their world. I know it's difficult for you. I accept that you're not going to give it up. So you're working with a lot of them all the time. But truly, you need to work on them individually, get a sense of what they all are individually, and then try and use them together collectively. It's just a better way of being. And if you look on the Shape Therapy, even Facebook page, it's about ways of being to make us better human beings. So I hope that kind of answers the question collectively. Use as many as you can, because they're all there and they're all worth it, I guess.
Perfect. Okay, Robert, we don't have any more questions. No more questions from anybody. So thanks very much, Robert. That was really, really insightful. I certainly listened to that. You know, you're thinking, yep, you know, we're all very critical against ourselves. You know, we are probably our own worst enemies. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat bar there as well. So I'll just draw things to a close then. We're nearly at time anyway. Obviously, Alison mentioned the webinar that we've got on tomorrow morning. So that's 10 o'clock until 11 o'clock with Snapdragon monitoring and Blackadder's looking at protecting your brand online. So we'll be looking at what you as a consumer can do to protect yourself, what you can do as a brand to protect yourself online against counterfeits. And what legal steps you can actually take as well with Blackadder. So Rachel Jones from Snapdragon, she's head dragon, as her title is with the organisation, and they've recently won the Queen's Award for Enterprise in the innovation category. So really looking forward to seeing and hearing from the two of them. So get yourselves online and sign up to that as well. And we'll be launching our next week's webinar series tomorrow. So keep an eye on your inbox as well. As we said before, the session has been recorded. So if you want to share it with anybody or revisit it, then just head on to the YouTube channel. That should be live in about 24 to 36 hours. And I'll also send just an email around to everybody with Robert's details and a link to a quick survey as well, just to get your feedback and any other topics that you're looking for the Chamber to cover. So that's me for just now. Thanks again, Robert. Really good to see you and good to see everybody else on the call, and we shall see you all later. Bye.
Thanks.